Welcome back, guys. It's called with the Sun Pirates TCG, and we are doing part 4 of our reviews for GD02 Dual Impact. So, we're talking about white today. As I'm sure you guys already know the drill by now, we're going to talk about each of the main archetypes and strategies coming out of this color. While I'm not going to talk about every single common and uncommon per se, we're just going to talk about the most notable cards. But definitely let me know in the comments if I miss anything super significant. But yeah, without further ado, let's just get right into it. Starting off, we'll talk about the AU strategy coming out of this set. So we'll have the LR up on the screen, the Zeta Gundam. This is a level 6/5 cost, 5/4 in stats. We've known about this one for a while. During Link, it has activate main once per turn, choose one active friendly based and rest it. If you do set this unit as active, and then for the rest of the turn, it cannot attack the enemy player. But you can still do something like, on play, link it, and then swing into your opponent's base, blow up their base or their shield, and then restand it by resting your own base and then attacking into a unit. Or you can even attack into 2 units, assuming it survives the first attack, right? It does link with Camille, which Camille is a really big stat stick. It's a level 5, 1-cost pilot, +1/+2, but while you have a friendly white base in play, this unit gets an additional +2 AP. So Camille overall gives +3/+2 if you fulfill the requirement, so very similar to Hero Yui, but it does not actually have to be linked, which is really cool. So you can put Camille on something like your Freedom Gundam and turn your Freedom into a 7/8, which is enormous. Even your Justice becoming an 8/7, your Aerial Rebuild becoming a 8/6 that triggers its ability. Like, there's a lot of really good white boss units. Oh, I forgot to mention the Ailstrike too, on top of that. But like I said, there's a lot of really good white boss units that just trigger their abilities on pair with anything, because they're really flexible for some reason. And just having Camille as a big stat stick is honestly something you need sometimes. Like, I've even seen blue-white lists, like in the past, play Benager without any unicorns, just to make your Ailstrike a 6/6, right? So with Camille being in the same color as well, it's actually really nice. It adds a lot of flexibility. But with the Zeta itself, I think this card's okay. Like I just gave my spiel about white boss units, there's a lot of competition with a lot of really good white boss units to play in your deck. So with the Zeta being this sort of like aggressive, proactive boss unit, that it does actually have quite a few requirements. It has to be linked. You have to have a base in play to do the ability, which is a couple of notches against it, I would say. Because it's a level 6/5 cost, it costs you 6 resources between playing this card and getting the Camille on to just have the link pair already. But if you're on level 6, that means you won't have a resource to use to just play a base if you don't already have one. So either you needed a base and play the turn prior without having it destroyed, or you have to like wait an additional turn, like being at level 7, so you have that extra resource to play the base the same turn, right? So those are the couple of issues I have with this card. Otherwise, like, the actual ability is fairly strong, being able to just randomly attack your opponent's face and then kill a unit, or killing 2 units. Because again, like, being 8 power off of the Camille is going to be really big. It can pretty much run over anything in the game. So we'll have to see. With the points I made, I think it's going to be a little bit awkward to play in like a white blockers deck, but maybe we'll see in practice and it might actually be pretty good. And then moving on to the other AU boss unit, we have the Hyakushiki. This one is actually one of my favorite units as a kid. This one was really cool. But yeah, it's a level 5 3 cost. It's a 4/4 in stats. It links with Quattro Begina, as I'll pull up on the screen. It has blocker, and while you have a friendly white base in play, it gains repair 1. So this one has pretty much the same stat line as the Perfect Strike Gundam, but in my opinion, this one has a slightly better ability with the repair 1, right? The Perfect Strike was always a little bit situational as far as being able to only bounce 1 health units, but this one just having the natural repair 1, you do have to have a white base in play, but again, it's a white blockers deck, so you'll probably be playing something like Archangel, right? So that's why I think the Hyakushiki would be a pretty good slot in for that. And then with Quattro is a +1/+2 pilot, so it becomes a 5/6. And then Quattro's pretty cool too. So he is also treated as Char's Noble. So in theory, you could play something like green-white if you want to link your Quattro with the Sharzaku 2s if you really want. But when linked, if this is an AU unit, you draw 1, discard 1. So the filter's nice. It's not super impactful on the board. However, just the typing, being a new type, being a Char's Noble, and being an AU trade does actually come into play quite a bit with a lot of these cards, as well as, some green cards from set 1 if you really want to go in that direction. We do have a couple of other AUK units that will link with any AUK traits, such as the Gundam Mark II. On deploy, if you have a friendly white base in play, you can pair one AUK pilot card from your hand with this unit, so you just get to bypass the cost of pairing the pilot pretty much. But again, it links with either AUK pilot with Camille and Quattro, so you can trigger the filter off of Quattro if you need to, or you get the big stat stick and Camille if you need it. So this one's overall like pretty decent. And then moving on, we also have the Rick Diaz Red, which also links with any AUK trait, which is nice. Level 4-3 cost 4-3 in stats, so it's on par with other level 4s. And on attack, you choose one active friendly base. Notice it doesn't specify white base. You rest it, and if you do, choose one enemy unit that's level 4 or lower, and it gets AP -2 for the battle. So this was actually pretty nice too. It's like Kira Yamato stapled onto the unit itself. It does not require to be linked or paired or anything to do that -2 AP, it just has to be on attack. But the fact it links with any AUK is nice. With Quattro, it becomes a 5-5 that you can trigger the filter. With Camille, if you have the white base, it becomes a 7-5, which is huge at level 4, right? Of course, you have to be at level 5 for Camille, but otherwise, yeah. And then the -2 AP, like I said, you could pick off some small units, survive a few combats. Like, I really like this card. Like, it has good effect, it's flexible, it doesn't require you to have other important pieces in play. You can play with any color base as well, like I said before. So yeah, I think this one could see some play, potentially. And then at level 3, we have another Rick Diaz. It's a level 3 2 cost, and it's a 3-3 blocker. So it's the same point value as the Elfrith. Instead of being a 2-4, it's a 3-3. But the fact that it's 3 power actually makes me like it a lot because it can break the EX base. So if you're in a situation where you need to beat the beatdown, just the 3 power being able to break your opponent's EX base and then you can, you know, like let your other units through is really nice. 3 power also means that it can contest a Rizel or Hyakuren against blue and purple, which is also good. And yeah, I just really like this. I think you would probably play it in addition to your Elfris in your blocker decks. So yeah, definitely be on the lookout for this one. And then moving on, we also have another level 2 1 cost 2-2 in white, the Nemo. So this is our third one in the color now, I believe. So you could play 12 2-2s if you wanted to in white, which is pretty funny. But yeah, it's just nice to see another one of these in the AU guard type. And then moving on to some non-units, we have a new command, a new sign. It's a level 4 3 cost, draw 3, discard 2. And then on burst, you choose one AUK base card from your trash and add it to your hand. There's only one target for this at the moment, but that's also pretty nice. So it's the same cost line as something like Show of Resolve, but you don't actually plus in card advantage as opposed to Show of Resolve, where it just straight up, you know, draws you 2 cards for spending the 1 card, right? So this one's just a net neutral, but it does dig you deeper for specific pieces. So we'll definitely see. I can see this being good in decks that don't have blue in them, so like slower control decks, maybe like green-white for example, might play something like this. But yeah, also the burst is pretty relevant too if you want to play with a lot of AUK bases, and maybe if they print more down the line. But like I said, the only AUK base at the moment that you can play with this is the Argama, which actually this one's pretty nice too. So it's a level 3 1 cost, 5 health, and very simply, this base cannot receive enemy effect damage. So what that means is, most importantly, it cannot receive damage from breach effects. So your opponent tries to play their 7-7 Wing Gundam, crash into your guy, and attempt to deal that 5 breach. That doesn't work with the Argama out. So that's pretty nice. It's a nice thing to have for your blue-white blocker decks, potentially, against things like green-white, if breach is a very relevant archetype moving forward. So yeah, I actually really like this one a lot. But then let's move on to the other main archetype in white for this set, which is Gjallarhorn from Iron-Blooded Orphans. So we'll start off with the LR, and man, this one, I'm really not impressed with it, guys. So it's a Gundam Kamaris. I really like the Kamaris from the show too. I thought this one was really cool, but yeah, it's a level 5-4 cost, 4-4 in stats, so it's on par with other level 5s, but on deploy, if you have 4 more Gjallarhorn cards in your trash, draw 2, discard 2, and that's it. I don't know, like, it doesn't do anything on play, really. I mean, yeah, the filter's nice, don't get me wrong. Like, filtering is good in a game where, like, we really don't draw that many cards in the first place, so I'm not going to discount that. But the fact that you also have to have 4 Gjallarhorn cards in your trash, it's like, would it really be that broken to just say, on play, draw 2, discard 2, right? And the fact that it's an LR2, I don't know, this really doesn't hit the mark for me. I don't know why we had to, like, dial it back so much if Like, even draw 2, discard 1, I think would be perfectly reasonable on this card if that's like the only thing it did, but yeah, it's just so many things against it. And then it links with Galio Baduin, which is +1/+1 when paired if there are 4 more Galahorn cards in your trash. Again, I don't know why we really need to have the Galahorn requirement. You choose one enemy unit, gets AP -2 for the turn. So it's nice, it's like Akira Yamato. The Galio itself is not that bad of a pilot, but it's just on the Kamaras. You make it a 5/5, you can trade into something efficiently, you get to draw 2, discard 2, but again, like, why do we have to have the 4 Galahorns in trash to fulfill that requirement? I don't think it would be broken if it didn't have the requirement in the first place. Like, I'm definitely not sold on it when we're in white we have other things like Ailstrike and Kira Yamato, right? So yeah, this one's unfortunately a miss for me. But before I digress any further, we have some other Galahorn cards. We have Cardus Grace Ritter. It's a level 4/3 cost, 5/4 in stats, which is pretty big, honestly. But during your opponent's turn, the enemy unit battling this unit gains first strike, which honestly, no spoilers, but that's pretty flavorful in the show, so I can't really hate on this card too much. Will this actually see play? I don't think so. Like, yeah, 5/4 in stats can trade into a lot of other big units, even potentially some link pairs. Like, you can link it with Carta Issue, but Carta's like not hyper impressive either. It's just action phase. If you have another Galahorn link unit in play, choose one enemy unit, gets -3 AP for the battle. So for being a command pilot, it's a way more restrictive version of Unforeseen Incidents, which again, it has that additional requirement to have the Galahorn link unit, and it only gives -AP for the battle, not for the whole turn. So yeah, I don't know about this one either. But then moving on to a couple more Galahorn cards. Again, these cards are just like strangely restrictive. We have the Galio Schwab Grace, which if you have another Galahorn in play, it gains blocker, but it's a level 3/2 cost 3/3. It's the same stat line as the Rick Diaz that we just showed a few minutes ago. It does link with Galio Bolden, so it does come with a link ability, but otherwise, yeah, you just have to jump through hoops for the blocker to be active, so I don't know about this one either. And then for the N archetype base, there's the Sleipnir, which is if a friendly Galahorn unit is in play, you choose one enemy unit and it gets -2 AP for the turn. So again, it has a decent effect, but again, you just have to be in this really restrictive archetype where the rest of the cards just don't seem to be that impressive. So yeah, I don't know about Galahorn at the moment, guys. Even with the stuff from the starter deck, I still think there's still a lot to be desired for Galahorn, unfortunately. And then going into the last section of this, we have a few stragglers that are support for previous archetypes from set 1. We have Academy with the Gundam Arrow rebuild as a rare. Honestly, this card I'm probably the most impressed with out of the entirety of white. It's a level 7 5 cost 5/5, so it's the same stat line as the Justice Gundam, for example. It naturally has high maneuver, which is crazy to have that in white, considering that white is also your control color. And then during pair, while there are 4 more commands in your trash, it gains blocker, which is such an easy requirement in your controlling white deck, because you have things like Overflowing Affection, a Show of Resolve, Unforeseen Incident, Striker Pack, even something like Hawk of Endymion, right? It pairs with Soletta, of course, but again, it doesn't require Soletta to have the blocker ability, so you can even put something like Camille onto it, and it becomes an 8/7 blocker, which is enormous, and then it has a high maneuver, right? So the biggest thing people are talking about is that you can combo this with your Archangel, you can swing in with a high maneuver, get in a free damage, and then use the Archangel to restand it, and then have it as a blocker through the next turn cycle. So yeah, this one's really scary. I think this one's really, really good as a potential control finisher for like your blue-white blockers deck, for example. I know I said in previous videos when I'm critiquing other level 7 units that level 7 is pretty late to play, admittedly, so against aggro strategies, it is pretty scary to just have this stuck in your hand, right? But because it's in white, this is the color that's meant to slow down the game, right? So this is why things like the Freedom Gundam in set 1 was still playable despite aggro being so prevalent. So I think the Gundam Aerial actually still slots in pretty well into that archetype as well. And then another Academy card that I wanted to bring up very briefly was the Gundam Ferract. It's a level 5/3 cost. It's a vanilla, but it's a 5/4. So this thing's pretty enormous. It's the same stat line as a Kshatriya, so it's above rate for other level 5s, like compared to Ailstrike, which is only a 4/4. And it's only 3 costs, so it's actually cheaper to play too. But again, it's a vanilla, right? But it does link with Elon Ceres, which is cool. Not that I think this is going to be like super crazy or anything, but it's just interesting to see that we might be getting a new cycle of sort of vanilla Gundams that are overstated for what they are, but they still have a link ability. So if we ever get one that can link with a more relevant pilot like gosh forbid, Amuro or Kira, then we could definitely be on the lookout for that. And then lastly, we have one support for Gundam Seed, which is the new Buster Gundam in white. This one's Triple Ship Alliance, which actually does have a slightly relevant typing for things like the Astray from set 1. While this unit has 5 or more AP, it gains blocker, and it links with any coordinator. So like Kira, Atherin, and then the rest of the Zap pilots, right? And then they all give at least +1 AP, so this one does immediately become blocker when it becomes linked, and then you can combo with like the Archangel to restand it, right? So this one's fine. I don't know if this is better than playing something like the Launcher Strike Gundam, for example, since it naturally has blocker, but this one could be interesting too for the fact that it has a link with any coordinator, so you can trigger your Zaft pilots, for example. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on white for this set. Like I said before, there's some cards that I'm very impressed with, and other cards that I'm very not impressed with, but we'll definitely see as the format shapes up. Maybe I could be wrong about the Gallahorn stuff, for example. But again, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Remember to like and subscribe, and as always, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.